Welcome to the Dark Side Revelations podcast. My name is Jonathan, that is Alex, and today we are switching it up and we are doing a What If episode, and we're doing What If Obi-Wan died fighting Maul instead of Qui-Gon. Um, this is going to be exciting. It's going to be our first What If discussion, so we'll see how this goes. We have a couple pieces of Star Wars news. First off, we have Darth Maul comics coming out. Darth Maul, Black, White, and Red is coming in April 2024. There are 4 issues, and I don't know who all the writers is, but I know Benjamin Percy is the writer of issue 1. We don't have a specific date yet, I don't think, for that one. And then we have another piece of Star Wars news here, and it's another comic book. It is... I'm blanking. Mace Windu. I completely just blanked of his name there. You said you had the date there. When's that one coming out?
Yeah, that one comes out February 7th.
All right, real close.
So you can pre-order it on Comixology or your local comic shop. And the Darth Maul one, that comes out in April. I don't know.
I don't
April
think it gave us a
25th.
specific date, though. Or do we have one?
April 25th. Yep. Issue 1 comes out April 25th.
Cool. And if you didn't know, there's also a Mace Windu book coming out. I don't remember if it was this year or next year, but we talked about that. I think it was episode 1, actually. So it's exciting. Hopefully they'll be accurate to each other. But who knows? Who knows how much planning went into that. And then that's all the Star Wars news, but just a reminder, we have the Bad Batch season 3 coming out. The first 3 episodes come out on February 21st, and the last episode, episode 14, comes out on April 24th. That's exciting. I'm a season
14 episodes?
Yeah, 14 episodes. The other 2 seasons have 16, so yeah.
Say that's a lot. I mean,
it is. It's going to last us a while, man.
Yeah, compared to what the other stuff that Disney's been releasing, other than was it Andor that had 12 or 16 episodes?
12.
Yeah.
I'm a season into the Bad Batch now. From pretty good. I don't know. I'm loving it. It's pretty good. McDonald's, I'm loving it. I'll give. We can talk about the Bad Batch a little bit once I finish the second season, and we'll talk about that. Talk about the trailer. Make some predictions, but that's not this week. This week we're doing our first What If episode. What if Obi-Wan died fighting Maul instead of Qui-Gon? So Alex, take us away.
Yeah. So the big discussion today is, what if Obi-Wan died fighting Maul instead of Qui-Gon? As we saw in the movie, after they find Anakin and they meet this dark apprentice, they had no idea who he was beforehand. But Qui-Gon was smart enough to realize the threat that he posed, right? They didn't know that he was a Sith. They didn't know that he was Darth at that point. They just knew that he was a Force-sensitive Dathomiri person that was up to no good, which it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon for Force-sensitive people to become renegades. We see that with some Jedi that fall out during their training. They don't lose their Force sensitivities. They just lose their mindset, right?
Yeah.
So sadly, Qui-Gon Jinn died fighting Maul. And I want to just talk about Qui-Gon for a second. So Qui-Gon was actually born on Coruscant, and he rose up through the ranks of the Jedi religion, all the way up to, he was offered a seat on the council, and he turned it down. He turned it down because he would rather adhere to his philosophies around the living Force, and he went on to follow the will of the Force, no matter where it took him. And that's part of the reason that they even found Anakin to begin with, is that he kind of plopped in his lap. He's like, okay, this is something's weird here, right? And he was listening to the Force like, okay, I need to test Anakin. We found out that he's force sensitive. You know, once we get back to the council, I think we should train him. And the council wasn't big on that idea. But then we get into the battle with Darth Maul, and Qui-Gon, takes a stab to the gut, and positionally, it also went through his spine, so he was both paralyzed and eventually like bled out, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, so his apprentice at the time, Obi-Wan Kenobi, or Daddy Kenobi, as we sometimes refer to in this, um, he was still a Padawan. He was still learning. He hadn't taken the trials yet. So when Obi-Wan Kenobi, when he defeated Maul, that counted as his trials. The High Council counted that as his knighthood trials because he was still apprentice at that point. So what we're really getting into is, instead of being handed off to the apprentice that uh, Obi-Wan was, instead Qui-Gon taking him back to Coruscant as he told him he was going to do, and training him. So the first thing that would have been is, like, Qui-Gon was a well-respected member of the Jedi Order. Again, he had been afforded the opportunity to join the Head Council. He turned it down because, like we've talked before, once you were a Jedi Master, you were kind of afforded the ability to do what you want. And as a student of the Living Force, he was a little bit non-traditional in his studies and in his teachings and everything. And he was also kind of like a free thinker. He didn't take everything that the council said as solid word, and he kind of thought for himself. And uh, the interaction that Obi-Wan has with Count Dooku, Dooku kind of alludes to that, where he could really use his help. Like, he was such a good tactician, and he was an excellent forward thinker and stuff like that. So immediately following Obi-Wan's death, Anakin would have been brought back to Coruscant. He would have been initiated as a youngling and stuff like that. He was a little older than the traditional youngling, but again, he was still right within the age that it would have been not big of a deal for him. And due to his like high force sensitivity, he would have learned very quickly. He would have jumped right into uh, being trained by Qui-Gon, once he passed the initial trials of the younglings and stuff. Um, the the big thing is that Yoda still would have had the interaction with him. He still would have seen the conflict in him about worrying about his mom, and again worrying about how Obi-Wan Kenobi died in front of him from this masked, not necessarily masked, but this hooded dark side figure that he had no idea existed, right? So he would have been dealing with that trauma, and Qui-Gon was in the place to comfort him, right? Whereas uh, Obi-Wan was very, everything is by the book. Everything had to be just right, right? He was a perfect council member. But Qui-Gon, again, with the whole free thinking thing, he would have taken a very non-traditional approach to Anakin's training. And Qui-Gon, more than anybody else, was the one that believed he was the chosen one, right? He's the one that first had the thought, maybe he was put here by the Force to right the wrong, to balance everything, right?
So he believed
So
he was fulfilling the prophecy.
yeah, so he believed he was fulfilling the prophecy, and the council did too, but they sensed that conflict in him. They sensed the fear, and I mean, they were right, but he thought that he could help him go through that, right? And right, like, he probably could have. He had years. He would have had almost a decade of teaching and meditation and stuff like that. And one of the first things that I wanted to get to was he wasn't one to just dismiss everything. It's like when Anakin's mom gets taken, he would have backed Anakin to go and help her, to go and save her, right? He wouldn't have just let her die on some some camp in the middle of Tatooine, or maybe he even would have sensed that she had been taken from the Lars homestead. Um, and again, when Qui-Gon would have lost his apprentice, that would have weighed on him absolutely. But he was old enough, mature enough, and well enough into the meditations and stuff that he would have been able to deal with that trauma. And we see through Obi-Wan that he never did. So he didn't trust Anakin the way that Qui-Gon could have. And one of the bigger things that leads to the downfall of Anakin is his development of his relationship with Padme, right?
Yep.
It's like the whole reason that they even found him was because of Padme, but later he gets assigned to protect Padme, and Qui-Gon would have taken a very different approach as far as the security of that hotel suite. And eventually, I want to get your opinion on this. Would he have allowed Anakin and Padme's relationship? Because Obi-Wan clearly knew about it. He clearly facilitated his relationship with
And
Padme, as we've seen in like the Clone Wars
and
episodes.
Obi-Wan was in a place to what's the word I'm looking for? To I don't know. I
To
guess just go
deny him
after
that?
Anakin. He had his own relationship, right?
Yeah.
So
And like he dealt with it, right? And we're talking about Obi-Wan now. Obi-Wan
yeah.
had a relationship with Duchess Satine of Mandalore, which he was stationed on Mandalore for a little while. They developed that relationship. He shut it down. He still had feelings for her and still like appreciated and respected her later in life, but he also didn't go further into the relationship. And he almost lived his relationship through Anakin and Padme, and Qui-Gon wouldn't have had that problem. He might have flirted with the idea of like, yeah, you can kind of see her a little bit, but the whole marriage thing and the deep-seated relationship that they did have, I don't think that would have happened.
Did Obi-Wan know they got married?
I'm not sure if he knew that they got married. I can look into that, but
I mean,
I
he obviously
really
knew about
don't think that
relationship.
happened.
I don't know if
Right,
he knew it went that far though.
right.
I don't know.
He did know that R2 was his gift from Padme. I don't know if he knew that it was the symbol that it was. So,
Yeah. Okay. So your point is, would Qui-Gon have allowed that to go on?
right. Would Qui-Gon have allowed Anakin and Padme's relationship?
Okay. Um. Yeah, that's very interesting. I would. There's two sides to this. One, Qui-Gon is, I feel, more of a rule follower than Obi-Wan ever was. But then he also just does his own stuff, right? I mean, there's two angles to play at this from. He's more, I'm gonna say, tightly wound, I guess. I don't know. But then he also does his own stuff. He has his living force states. He's not a traditional Jedi at the same time. I would say that no, Qui Gon wouldn't allow the relationship to go on, especially to the point that it did. Um, but that also brings up, would Anakin even seek that, being trained from um, Qui Gon instead? Or would he have felt more ashamed of that, being trained that way?
That's a
So
good point. If your
would
master is
it
a little bit
even
more
go that far?
respected,
Yeah.
yeah, you wouldn't be
Would Anakin
sneaking
have
around
called it
someone
off?
like that.
Yeah.
Anakin could have shut it down, sure.
Yeah.
But for the sake of argument, I mean, I agree with. I don't personally. I don't think it would have happened. I don't the extent that it did.
Yeah.
But clearly, that was the direction of the movies, right? So,
Yep.
for argument's sake, let's say the relationship did happen. That brings up the next problems of is he still the chosen one, right? Because it isn't until after he develops this relationship that Anakin has the interaction with Mortis, right, with the father and the son and daughter. Would he have told Qui-Gon about it? Because I don't remember him telling Obi-Wan about it at all.
You're asking
Because
if
if
he's still the
he
chosen one?
no. So in what way would that have confirmed Qui-Gon's belief that he was the chosen one? And if he wouldn't have been in such a vengeful state that Obi-Wan had allowed him to be in, would he have gone through that interaction differently and come out as the chosen one that Mortis originally saw, where he would have balanced the light with the dark instead of the dark destroying the capacity of the light?
Okay.
You see what I'm getting at here?
Kind of. I
Because
gotta be
his
honest.
whole outtake on, or his whole outlook on the Force would have been so more holistically, as opposed to honestly the Sith view that Obi-Wan kind of put into him, where you're either good or you're bad, whereas Qui-Gon was more
Mm,
whatever the Force wills, that is what it is. You know, if you're
okay.
bad, if you're good, you are a tool of the Force, right?
So looking at it, are you okay? Here's what I just thought of.
Mm-hmm.
He probably would have. Ah, maybe he would have been taught not so. You're saying he might not would have been taught so black and white. Like
Right,
if not so much if you're not with me, you're against me, right? Um,
right. Because the whole only a Sith deals in absolutes, and Obi-Wan Kenobi's out here throwing ultimatums left and right.
yeah,
Qui-Gon wouldn't have been like that.
yeah. Um, I would say maybe this isn't the angle you're going at, but I would say I don't think Anakin would have fallen away like he did, and then fulfilling the prophecy in the way he did. Um,
Mm-hmm.
just having it not so right and wrong, but more like it is what it is. You know, there's obviously right and there is obviously wrong, but whatever the Force
Mm-hmm.
wills you to do, you should do. I think that it wouldn't have allowed um, for Palpatine and for him to convert to the dark side so easily because it wasn't so. If I have this doubt or if I have this problem, I am now bad, right? I'm now just cast
Right.
aside, right? It. I.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how I. I would think that he would have stayed more on the left side of the Force, have he been, I'm going to say, raised or taught differently.
Right. Because he would have been taught everything is the will of the Force. All the Force wants is balance,
Yep.
not you have to be the agent of that balance. Right.
Yeah. And even if we're going with the balance of the Force and the Chosen One, I could see Qui Gon teaching not or teaching not to be scared, like terrified of the dark side, because if he's the chosen one, he's supposed to balance both sides, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, then yeah, or I don't know how it would have gone, but it would have been. I guess we're just going here with less strict, right? That the dark side isn't so bad as long as you don't dive into it, right?
Right. And so like my whole thought there with him being the chosen one, I feel like he would have been afforded the opportunity at the permission of the High Council. Well, for one, they would have made him master. Qui-Gon would have had a lot bigger leg to stand on there than
Yeah, yeah,
Obi-Wan did.
definitely.
And it wouldn't have been this charade of, well, you gotta do the secret mission, and then after that you can be a master. No.
Yeah.
Qui-Gon just like make him do the trials.
Yep.
That's it. It doesn't have to do this stupid espionage mission. We're not spies.
Yeah.
But I feel like he would have been afforded the opportunity to, because he was the chosen one, to balance the Force. He would have been allowed to dip into dark portions of the Force
Yep.
to gain that understanding and see where the balance needed to be set.
But would I'm thinking Yoda right now. Would he have done that? Yoda saw what was gonna happen. He saw the conflict. What would have what would have Qui Gon need to do to allow permission for that? Obviously, he could just do it by himself, but you know
Yeah.
what convincing
So
needs to happen.
so in one way, you need to resolve the conflict, right? So his worry was his mother.
Yep.
And it's not too much of an ask of a Jedi to go out and save a slave,
Yeah, that's
right?
fair.
And at that point, uh, when he was up for the rank and everything, the Clone Wars definitely would have still happened. Not arguing that point at all. Um, he would have been in a position to just be like, "Hey, my mom's in trouble. She's not a slave anymore. Can we go help her?
Yep.
She's not someone's property. This isn't
Yep.
unheard of. It's no different than, oh, our friend the Wookiees, our friends the Wookiees need our help. Cool, let's go help them.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
Jedi are supposed to do. And to me, that would have been a simple fix. That was one of the big turning points for Darth Vader, was him slaughtering the Tusken Raider village.
Yep.
And maybe it would have been diplomatic, maybe it still would have been a fight. I don't know. But his mom could have come out alive. Either way, the council would have made an attempt to resolve his conflict, and that was part of his conflict, was that he wasn't supported, because
Yeah.
the force users are so driven by their emotions. If you have the positive into the negative like that, like you have the support behind, oh, this bad thing just happened, but my friends were behind me, he could have dealt with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially with Qui Gon behind him. Not Padawan, a recent knight. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it it would have got very different.
So then the other point comes, for argument's sake, the relationship with Padme was allowed to go through.
Yep.
Whether they did or didn't know about the wedding, I think is irrelevant.
Yep.
But the threat of her dying when she gave birth to the children, again, he would have been in a place to say, Qui Gon, I've seen these visions. I'm having these dreams where my wife is dying in childbirth and I want to prevent this. And Obi-Wan would have, or sorry, Qui-Gon would have come at it from, well, maybe you can, maybe you can't prevent it, but what you can do is you can be there for the kids, right?
Yeah.
The
Yep.
order will be behind you, whether you have to step away and not be a Jedi anymore. That's perfectly fine. People have attained the rank of master, even council member, and stepped away from the order.
Yep.
I mean, case in point, Dooku. He
Yep.
was a council member and left because of a family matter. Granted, it was his brother dying and he had to go take control of a planet, but even still, cool, you had these kids. We don't want attachment, but we also don't want these kids to live without their dad.
Yeah. And also, okay, here's how I see this conversation going. We take the state of Anakin at this point, just for the sake of argument. Let's go off the movies. We can obviously argue that he wouldn't have been so rebellious at this point if he was raised by Qui Gon. But let's just take
Right.
where he is in the movies right now. Um, I see this conversation going. Whatever happens, happens. It's the will of the Force. You can't stop it. And then I see Anakin just, no, that's stupid, right? Why would the Force do that to me, kind of thing? How do you think that would go if Qui Gon came and told him this is the will of the Force? If Padme dies, that's just how it is.
I mean, but it's kind of like, why is there cancer? Why do people die for no reason? Why do you have kids dying in car accidents?
Yeah,
At some point, there is some cosmic will, and we don't have control over it. And maybe, yes, maybe we would still lose him. He would still turn into Darth Vader, but he wouldn't have gone on the vicious rampage of destroying the order that he did. He wouldn't have killed all the younglings and stuff like that, right? He
yeah,
wouldn't have had this huge amount of malice built up towards the order that hadn't protected him or supported him all that time.
yeah. That's fair.
And then my other point is if he had this master of Qui-Gon, right? And we know Anakin had his own apprentice, Snips. Would Ahsoka have turned out differently? She was a non-traditional Jedi, as was Anakin,
Yep.
as was Qui-Gon. Um, would she have stayed in the Order? Would her trial that she was put in, where she eventually left, would that have gone differently at Qui-Gon's hand?
Okay. I'm refresh my memory. I'm blanking. What was the what did she do that made the trial
So
happen again?
I don't remember.
I
Let
don't
me let
remember
me
what
look
the
that up
trial
really.
was about. Um,
So,
because this all brings up, I think, the greater overarching question, which is just how they different he would have been trained. Just the big point is experience, right? With Qui-Gon being a Jedi Master, having experience, and Obi-Wan just barely becoming a Jedi Knight, right? Um, yeah, I think that's what it all boils down to. I don't
all right.
know.
So
Bec- I also don't know about the process of um, during the Clone Wars, if there was any kind of compatibility test or something like that, or they just picked this Padawan 32. You get Padawan 32. Her name's Ahsoka. Good luck. You know.
yeah, so normal I can attest to that. So normally a master gets to choose their apprentice. Not like an interview process, kind of like,
Yeah, but
I'm kind of leaning towards you, kind of leaning towards you. The force
yeah.
is saying these things, right? But during the Clone Wars, they were just, here's your master, get after it. We need Jedi in the field.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
so yes, Ahsoka was assigned to Anakin. Obviously, they got along great.
Yeah.
Their personalities meshed really well, so we were lucky for
Yep.
that. And Qui-Gon would have been able to choose Anakin, and he would have been able to influence which Padawan he got, right? Being a Jedi Master. Ultimately, it was
That's
Yoda's
fair.
decision because he was the one that was in charge of the younglings, but he
Yep.
would have been in the position to have those conversations with him.
Yeah.
Whereas Obi-Wan was just like, yep, whatever you say, because he
Yep.
was such a rule follower.
Yep.
But I do have the information about Ahsoka's trial. So she was charged with sedition against the Order for her alleged role in the bombing of the Jedi Temple hangar. There was someone that was in a cell with her that was force choked to death. And
Oh yes, I remember.
yeah, so all this stuff happened. She gets put on trial. Eventually, she was cleared um,
But then she
after
leaves.
Anakin conducted his own investigation, found out that it was garbage.
Yeah.
Um, because
I
this is
remember all
when
this
we
now.
find that Barris Offee, the gal that's got all the like face tattoos and stuff, she was the one that actually committed the sedition, and they fight in the, I think it was the prison cell or
Yeah.
um,
Something like that.
the office of one of the masters. I don't remember who her
It was in
master
her. It was
was.
in like her quarters, I think.
Yeah, it was in her room. It was in her bedroom
Yeah.
because she
Yeah.
was like found with some stuff, and
Yep.
yeah, that was no good. But had Qui-Gon been there, he would have been like, this doesn't make any sense. This completely goes against her character. She
Yep.
wouldn't have done any of these things. He would have conducted his own investigation, but since Anakin wasn't a master, his weight wasn't taken into account until the very end. Qui
When
Gon
he
would have intervened
found the solution,
immediately. Right. Would have
he
cleared
was
it like
respected more,
that.
right?
Right. He
Yeah.
had a lot more sway than Anakin did, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Anakin was a war hero at this point, but even still, procedure is procedure.
Yep.
So I personally think that if Qui Gon had been Anakin's master, we would still have an Ahsoka that was part of the Jedi.
Ooh. Okay. Uh, hmm. Because her whole reason for leaving was the trust from the Order was lost, right?
Yep.
They didn't trust her that she didn't do it. That still would have been true,
Right.
but I would have to think that it also would have been resolved quicker, right, with Qui
That's
Gon
what I'm
there.
saying. Right. Because Qui Gon had been like, look, just hang out here, Trust the process. We'll get it handled. We know you didn't do this,
Yeah.
right? But like again, something happened at the temple on Coruscant. They need to figure out what happened.
Yep.
You were here at the temple, so you're a suspect, but so is 40 other people. So we need to clear everyone, right?
Yeah. I don't know.
I think they would have come out very differently.
That's it would have come out differently. I just don't. I don't know. Um, I think. Um, I think it really does determine on like how the speed of the whole process. I'm gonna be honest. She doesn't have time to, you know, break down and um, think about the trust of the order and all that. She doesn't have time to talk to the Jedi Masters and see what they think. I think I'm gonna go with. I think she would have left the order still.
She
Um,
would have left the order still.
yeah. Um, and maybe it's not immediate. Maybe it's not immediate, but she comes back and it's just not the same, right? She goes on a mission, and the people just don't really trust her. You know, she's kind of talked down to more than she was before, right? Maybe even I don't know if the clones would do something different, but you know, and then maybe that would push her out, right? That it wasn't immediate, but she sees the effects of what happened.
Yep.
That
Okay.
no one really still trusts her 100%.
So the other point that I wanted to argue was Anakin gets put on this mission to spy on the Chancellor, right? And he was assigned this mission by the High Council. Now, Qui-Gon, not being a member of the Council, would not have been able to stop that.
Yep.
However, he would have been able to interact with Anakin throughout the whole process. He's his Padawan, right? You know, he's a Jedi Knight at this point. Anakin is,
Yeah.
and he would have been able to be like, "Hey, what's going on? I know that you're investigating this guy. I know that you're spying on him. You're taking these meetings. You're going to, the opera house with him. Um, what's the deal here?" So when he eventually found out that Palpatine was a Sith Lord, after he has the whole thing where, have you ever heard the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise? He would have immediately flagged that to Qui Gon and been like, "Hey, he told me this story. I had no idea about this." And Qui Gon, being a master, would have known about Darth Plagueis, right? They knew the Sith existed. They didn't know that
Do
Sheev
they
Palpatine
know
was
of
his
Darth
apprentice.
Plagueis the Wise
They
though?
did. They did know because they knew of um, Darth Tenebrow, I think, was his master. They knew of him, and they knew of his apprentice. They lost where he was. They
But
weren't
weren't they
tracking him, but
assumed
they knew
dead
he
still at this
existed.
point? They were still assumed, or
No,
maybe
they
not
they
completely
the
gone, but
order assumed that Plagueis was still alive, and so Anakin coming in with his intel would have been okay. There's no one in the galaxy that would have this information
yeah.
unless it was the person that killed him, right?
But how is that any different than Obi-Wan? How does
Because
Qui-Gon change this?
so Qui Gon, and you have to go back to Qui Gon being Dooku's apprentice. Uh, Dooku was a big history buff, and specifically the history of the Order, the history of the Sith, and how all of their shortcomings were never fully addressed, right? So Qui Gon would have come at this with, "Oh, this is our chance to come in and make the change that my master told me we needed to make," which is part of the reason that Dooku left. Is there's all of these weaknesses in the Order. We're doing nothing to fix it, and Qui-Gon would have had the same view of, we have problems and we need to address them, right? So my whole opinion is, if Qui-Gon would have been the master when he was assigned to this spy mission, he would have been there towards the end of it, right? Like when they went to go and arrest Palpatine, it wouldn't have been just Mace Windu and the few people that he brought with him. It would have been a lot more Jedi, including Anakin, and Anakin would not have turned at that point. I'm not saying Anakin wouldn't have turned to the dark side indefinitely, but I do think that Qui-Gon would have seen the risk at that point and chosen to be a part of the resolution of
Okay.
Palpatine.
Yeah.
But we also know how powerful Palpatine was.
Yep.
Um, I do think he still would have lived at that point. He wouldn't have, whether or not he killed Mace Windu, I think is irrelevant.
Oh, I was about to say that. That's I think that's the most important thing. We need him back.
Yes, say I would personally would have liked him to live through that. Um,
Yeah.
I think the way he died is kind of cheesy, especially the abilities that we know Jedi have, and Mace Windu being one of the most powerful in the Order didn't know how to fall. Really? Or they wouldn't have called for backup. They wouldn't have brought any clones with them or anything like that.
Yeah. It's
They just
fair.
brought 4 Jedi.
Yeah.
Um, but what I'm really getting at is Qui-Gon would not have allowed Anakin to turn to Darth Sidious at that point, and we would never have Darth Vader.
Never.
So Darth Vader is Anakin specifically, right? I'm not saying that we would. I'm not saying we wouldn't ever have Dark Side Anakin because he still has that conflict, right? But I do think that if Palpatine lived, he would have been forced to go and um, find a new apprentice or find Maul because we know Maul lived. He would have went and found Maul and brought him back in as
Yeah.
his apprentice, not just the Lone Ranger that he was at that point.
What about Dooku though?
So Dooku was dead when this happened,
Oh
and one of
yes.
the
Yes.
one of the
Yes. Yes. Sorry.
deciding factors in Darth Vader's ascension was him killing Dooku. And again, it would have been his master's master. He would have had an utmost respect for this individual. I
Yeah.
don't think he would have killed him.
Oh. That. Oh,
You
that's a
see what
good
like you
point.
see what I'm getting at?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point.
Like
Oh
all the
man.
steps to Darth Vader's ascension would have been gone. He wouldn't
Yeah.
he
No.
wouldn't
If
have
that
slaughtered the
was.
Tusken Raiders. He would have saved his mom. He would have helped Padme in some way. He wouldn't have killed Dooku.
Man. Yeah.
You see what I'm getting at? We
Yeah.
would not have Darth Vader.
Yeah. I agree. You put Qui Gon, his master, and his apprentice in there. You're not gonna kill Dooku. You're gonna prison him,
Yeah.
obviously, but yeah, I didn't even consider that. Wow, I agree. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be Vader, and um it wouldn't be under Palpatine. I would say, um, if he ever turned. Realistically, the Jedi wouldn't have been able to hold Palpatine indefinitely
No.
in prison, right? He was too powerful for that. Um, but I could very well see um, if Anakin did then go and turn for some other reason. Um, I would have like it. It would have been a challenge then to Palpatine. That would have been interesting to see, right? It's not Palpatine doing him a quote unquote favor and then abusing that, right? And um, it would have been uh, Anakin going after Palpatine for the title of what is it, Sith Master? That's not right.
Dark Lord of the Sith.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the highest one. But
No,
again,
yeah. I didn't even
could the
consider that. That's
Jedi
a
have
really good
snuffed
point.
out the Sith entirely? So let's say they did. They did. Okay, let's say he kills Dooku.
Uh huh.
Like Dooku doesn't give him a chance. We know he was an excellent swordsman.
Yep.
But let's say that they go and confront Palpatine and they actually imprison him or kill him. Because we know at the events of right then, right before Order 66, he wasn't ready for the whole cloning process yet. So had they killed him,
He would have
who is
actually
then
died.
Dark Lord of the Sith?
Yeah, I mean,
Maul,
yeah, yep,
but he wouldn't know.
no,
Maybe.
and it takes him a while to come back. So
Yeah, it took him a few years to crawl out of the hole, right?
yeah,
But then at the same point, would
but then it would be Maul and Savage as
right? Would it be Maul and
Sith.
Savage, or would it be Maul and Asajj?
Oh,
Because that was Dooku's other apprentice,
yeah.
who then turned renegade, bounty hunter kind of thing.
I
If
you
she
think
had been
us? Do you think
promised
us?
the number two seat, I think she would have taken it.
You think she would challenge for that? She wouldn't just keep doing her own thing.
I don't think so. I think if it was under Maul, she would absolutely do it, especially because she was Dathomiri.
Yeah, that's fair. I think yeah, she would probably challenge for it, and probably I would see her trying the challenge for challenge Maul and not
I mean,
Savage,
oh
right?
yeah, absolutely, eventually, sure. But would she also then lean into becoming one of the Night Sisters and being the Sith
Hmm.
number two, right?
Okay.
Because she would have been
Yeah.
one of the most powerful people in the universe at that point.
Then she could repair the relations, right? There,
Right?
right then, between the Sith.
And then maybe the Empire wouldn't have ruined Dathomir the way it did.
Yeah. Yeah.
There would still be Night Sisters and Night Brothers, and we wouldn't have to go to a different galaxy to bring them here.
Yeah, I mean that's a fair point.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I seriously think that like Qui-Gon is this huge
Yeah, that's
he
a
is this
big turning
huge
point, man.
cornerstone to the story, to the religion, to what Anakin could have been. And
Yeah.
you just see the farther we go down the list,
Yeah.
all of the outcomes that could have been different at his guidance.
Man, that's crazy.
There was one final thing I wanted to get into, which um, it's a what if on a what if, right?
Yep.
Um, Padme lives,
Like Anakin's path?
right? So Anakin, the kids, the Jedi, Qui Gon. Um, my first point
Hmm.
is she was still a senator. I don't think she would have given that up. Not a chance. Um,
Wait. Before maybe
I don't think so.
if I I don't think at that point, but very well to protect her family, I can see Padme leaving
But what is there to protect her family from?
at that point. It could be anyone, man. It doesn't have to be the Sith. It could just be a gang that has something against her,
What?
or her.
Yeah, but how many senators have families?
A lot.
All of them.
Yeah, I mean, but I could see her leave eventually. I don't think she would leave right then and there, no. But
But what does it mean for Anakin? Would they make him leave the order? Would they allow him to have this family? Would they allow him to double dip? Or would he have to just forego the family piece and just have the peace and the resolution that he saved his wife, he saved his kids, but he still has to be in the order?
yeah, that
Because
brings
he
up
would
the
have been a Jedi
yeah,
master at this point, right?
yeah, that brings up the question: Would what would have
Because there
Anakin
is,
prioritized? Right?
right.
Would he have been a Jedi?
Would it
Would
be
he
up to
have
him?
just said? Yeah, I think first it's up to him, right? Before they make him do anything, they give him the option, stay in the order, and leave your family, or you can leave the order, right?
Because there is a documented exception of a high council member having relations and offspring and everything, which is Kiarimundi. But the main reason behind that is his the race that he was. I don't remember what it is, but the race that he was had so few males that were ever born that he had to actually keep the species going.
Okay. Do
But
you
I don't know
think?
that he was allowed to have, time to go see his kids or anything like that.
Yeah. Do you think relations would have been allowed if they were force sensitive children and were gonna become younglings?
So that's my thing. They were force sensitive children, right?
That's fair. Yeah, they
And
were.
I personally don't know of any father and son, father daughter
I don't know.
Jedi, right? Would
Yeah.
they have been afforded the opportunity to join the order? Would Anakin have had to leave? Would he have absolutely no bearing on, what if they did join the order? Would he be allowed to train them? Would he be allowed to see them?
I don't think. I think they wouldn't be allowed to work together at all. That's too much fear there. If they were even allowed to join, because there's, I could very well see them. But yeah, your children can join the order, but you have to leave, right? You guys can't be doing this together. The fear there, and the
Mm-hmm.
temptation to the dark side would be too strong.
Right.
Um, yeah, I think that they would have done that. They would have said either they can join or they don't, right? But you can't be here if they're here.
Mm-hmm. So my personal view is he would serve on the council until they were through the youngling stages. Once they graduated to Padawans,
Uh huh.
then he would leave. He would go and be
Okay.
with Padme on
Just
Naboo
live
and
his
do
life.
whatever. Right.
Yep.
He would no longer be a member of the Order. He would still be force sensitive. He'd still be influential to the galaxy, right?
Yeah.
But he would leave the mantle to his children in the
I could
Order.
I could very well see Anakin trying to get onto some missions though.
Because wouldn't you think that that would also be him restoring the balance, still maintaining his position as the chosen one? Maybe his whole mission through the Force was to give Luke and Leia their chance at life, because we know that Luke is really the one that restores the balance,
Yeah.
Not Anakin, not Vader,
Yeah.
and he becomes the father, and then he has a son and a daughter, and it sounds a lot like the Mortis line,
Yep.
and maybe the three of them, once they've gone up the ranks in the order, they take the place of the Mortis trio.
Wait. You're saying Luke as the father,
I'm saying Anakin is the father,
and then
and
you have
I
the daughter and the
personally
son.
think that Leia would be the one to be the dark side adept person of the three of them.
Really?
Yes.
What a take, man! Holy.
Because when you look into it, Luke was calm, peaceful.
Yeah.
Like, yes, he was a
Yeah.
skilled swordsman. He was highly adept in the ways of the Force. But who was willing to throw violence at the drop of a hat?
Yeah.
Leia
That's
was.
yeah. I I couldn't see Luke being too influenced by the dark side until
See
he
how
becomes a grouchy
Qui-Gon
old
can
man
just
and
make so
retires
much of a difference?
into uncharted territory. Then he can very well be tempted by the dark side.
Yep.
Man, Qui-Gon, he's influential.
He gets like the least amount of screen time out of everybody, but this dude is important. I'm telling you.
Holy.
And it's not just because I'm a Liam Neeson fan. Like, I really think that Qui-Gon could have made a huge difference.
I didn't think we were gonna go this far in today. Holy. He's got that's a big point in the story. Wow.
Yeah, so for next week, I would love to do another What If episode, more focused on one of our dark side users.
Okay.
Specifically, I think, my personal favorite, Darth Maul. Um, I think there's a lot of things that he could have done and should have done. And I want to start it at the point where we split with Qui-Gon.
Okay.
I don't
So
think he would have, quote unquote, died on the battle in Tatooine.
are you saying like are you saying what if he didn't die? That's just
I'm not saying what if he didn't die. What if he didn't interfere?
Oh, you want to go that? Okay.
Hmm. What if he just left it as a scouting mission and didn't attack them? He waited for word from Palpatine to find out who
Oh,
this kid really is.
yeah, that's interesting. I'm good with that. I guess we're deciding live right here, next week's episode. No, yeah, I like that one. Um, yeah. You have any last things for this episode?
Uh, Let me double check my notes, but I don't think I do. Oh, the other thing that I did want to touch on with Qui-Gon is he was the one that taught Yoda how to become one with the Force and become a Force ghost, right?
Uh huh.
But he himself, we have no idea we have no idea when he learned that.
Yeah.
Did he learn that in his time studying the will of the Force, or did he learn that after he died?
Oh. Oh.
So
Okay.
again, if Qui-Gon had lived,
Would
would Yoda had ever learned had he would he have ever learned how to become a Force ghost?
I don't know. I don't know if there's enough to. I don't know. We don't know, right? He very well could have. He could have not. You know. Do you have your personal opinion of when he learned it?
So, in my mind, he learned it after he died. That's how I think of it. Because he was a student of the living force. When he died, the force gave him the opportunity to be the force ghost, to become one with the force, right?
Okay. Okay.
Um, and it was also almost like the force saying thank you because he had confirmed and found the chosen one, the prophesied person
Yeah.
who was going to balance the force. And that's
Yeah.
the force saying, thanks, dude. You might as well be here to help us figure it out.
Yeah. You did us a solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, personally, had he lived, would he have taught Master Yoda? Maybe, but it would have been in person.
Yeah. That's cool. Dang.
That was my final note.
Final note. Okay, yeah, I don't have any last things to add. This went a lot deeper than I thought it was going to, honestly. I didn't realize how much Qui Gon had influenced the entire first and second trilogy. He's pretty influential, man.
Yep.
um, yeah, that's all I have for this week. You can find us at DS Revelations on social media. We're on Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. We're posting shorts every Friday and Wednesday, and new episodes on Wednesdays. Um, uh, Next week, we're talking about, as you heard us, we're doing another what if about Maul, and we're gonna see what he could have done if he did not die. Um, you can find me on Twitter at the Jonathan J. What about you?
I'm also on Twitter at Darth Pauling.
All right. Thank you for guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next week. Talk about Maul.